The panel had been given an agenda in two parts. Part 1 had the usual declarations of interest, checking of minutes of previous meeting, and urgent matters, there were none, followed by the procedure to be followed at confirmation hearings and the confirmation hearing itself. The panel had also been given a report from their clerk, recommendation 1 of which gave the reason for the hearing. That the panel considers the information provided by the Office of Sussex Police and Crime Commissioner and, following questioning, agrees a recommendation to the Commissioner on whether or not to appoint the proposed Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner for Sussex. The information provided by the Commissioner's Office was in a document explaining that the Commissioner proposed to appoint Mr. Waite to the post of Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner for Sussex. It also listed the criteria used in the selection and provided a series of statements serving as evidence as to how Mr. Waite meets those criteria. The plural subject and singular verb in the first clause of 3.2 are authentic. Part 2 of the agenda has only one item, item 6, to say whether the panel recommends that Waite should be appointed Deputy Commissioner. It also says the panel is asked whether the public, including the press, should be excluded under Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 because the public interest in maintaining the exemption of that information outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. In other words, did the elected councillors think that it was in the public interest for them to hide from the people they represent what their decided opinion on the appointment was?
Are there any, other than the list that you have in front of you, which is the regular declarations?
Councillor Y switched on his microphone at the end of his declaration instead of before it. He declared, "I am a colleague of Mr. Steve Waite on Worthing Borough Council and a fellow Cabinet member on Worthing Borough Council."
As a West Sussex County Councillor, Mr. Steve Waite is known to me as a colleague of West Sussex. Right. The minutes of the last meeting are on the buff sheets of paper. Are you happy that they are a correct record of our meeting on the 11th? Agreed? You're happy, therefore I can sign them. Agreed. Thank you very much indeed.
I'm not happy. I watched the webcast, and when 2 votes were taken, some of the panel members were not visible, and all the results were not announced by the chairman. I looked in the 7 pages of minutes for details of the voting, but found only, "The panel voted to approve the proposed precept." And as regards the plan, "A majority of members on the panel voted to agree the motion." The number of votes for and against, the number of abstentions, and how individuals voted are not included, though the names of 2 members who left early were noteworthy. Incidentally, the way in which such minutes are produced, with habitual use of the passive voice, can be very misleading. The same approach was routinely taken by Sussex Police Authority, avoiding any individual responsibility. For instance, these minutes say, "It was explained that the public would be positive about paying more tax for the police if a good service was provided." The verb "explained" implies that the statement about the public's attitude is fact, when it was merely the professed opinion of Councillor Duncan, who said much the same thing during the financial gloom of October 2008.
I've never once have I heard anyone say that they think policing is too expensive in Sussex. Never once have I ever heard anyone say they would like to pay less for policing. They just want to see more resources spent on it. For the government to set a cap limit at 5% is really the government saying it knows better than we do about what people are prepared to pay and what level of policing people want to see in Sussex. We are at this particular hearing
have the opportunity of putting a few questions to the Commissioner first, mainly to clear a few issues that the panel are concerned about, and then following that we will then move on to the confirmation hearing for Steve Waite, and I propose that any questions that the panel members wish to put, you do so on that occasion. At the end of that public hearing session, we will then close the meeting. We will need to clear the public gallery because the panel will then deliberate their response. Okay?
No, I cannot see that it is okay. The agenda part 2 said that the panel was asked to consider whether the public should be excluded. Did the panel agree to this at a private meeting before this meeting? Did they agree as a majority or unanimously? I would have liked to know the name of anyone who disagreed. From the hearing, I've selected a few of the more important points. The clips are short excerpts, but I don't think that the lack of context involves distortion. There were, of course, no questions about shortcomings attributed to the work of Sussex Police over the last few years in reports from Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary.
It would be very helpful to the panel, Commissioner, if you would tell us why you see that you need a deputy.
The workload is quite significant and will continue to increase.
Perhaps you could tell us in what way you consider Steve Waite to complement your skills.
He has extensive knowledge and experience of public sector finance. He has experience as a local councillor working at a senior level, and he was the previous chairman of the police authority.
Could you explain to me how you have found the correct level of resources for this post?
The Home Office have also said that the role of deputy, which Parliament decided is one that is most appropriate for this position, is to be capped at up to 75% of the PCC's salary.
How will you be reassuring the residents of Sussex that this appointment is not cronyism and is in their best interests?
Mr. Waite was not a member of my previous campaign team to get me elected.
Nick Herbert, very keen to ensure that the bringing of into being of a police crime commissioner was to start dealing with things in a more interesting, innovative and new way. And it seems slightly peculiar to me that by bringing in the ex-chair of the police authority, which disappeared, is bringing the old into the new, and that merger might not entirely be healthy.
I very much epitomise the ethos of the previous policing minister, Nick Herbert, because I am very new to this role.
We'll now move on to the questions to the candidate, Mr. Waite.
How did you hear about this role? Where did you see it advertised? And secondly, given that the role is billed as a full-time task, a full-time job, given that you are currently a West Sussex County Councillor as well as a Cabinet Member at Worthing Borough Council, in the event that you are appointed to the role of Deputy Commissioner, will you intend to stand down from West Sussex County Council and Worthing Borough Council?
How did I hear about the job? And I was phoned up by the Commissioner on a Friday evening at about 7 o'clock in January. It's my intention to, if appointed, to do this job on a full-time basis, and I will look at my other commitments.
The Commissioner said you would be managing communities. Would that mean that you had some involvement in the setting of the allocations of community safety budgets? Because clearly both Worthing and West Sussex get an allocation. There may be thought to be a conflict of interest there.
My understanding is for the current 2013-14 year, the Commissioner has already announced her intention on those budgets. It will be up to her to decide how she wishes to progress that in the future.
Councillor Elkin, having had quite a big post bag about whether or not we need a deputy, and being a bit concerned by Waite's answer to the question about the time commitment, asked it again.
I wouldn't be able to even think about being a deputy commissioner with the commitments I've already got as a borough and a county councillor. So I don't think you can do the both. I'd just like a bit of clarity about which bits you might stop doing.
Okay, for clarity, and let me be as precise as I can, my first priority will be to do the role of the Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner if I am appointed by the Police and Crime Commissioner. In order of importance, so to speak, the Commissioner has asked that I remain a County Council member because she believes it will enhance and enable the work that I will be asked to do more effectively. The role of the Borough Council, therefore, is at the bottom of the pecking order, and I think it almost certain that I will relinquish any cabinet posts that I have there, but not until after I've taken the budget through the full council meeting, and it's likely that I will at some point come off of the Borough Council.
3 other councillors then expressed concern about the same subject, and after a couple more questions, we
will now close this session and go into, as we in local government call part 2, and discuss what our conclusion will be.
6 days after the meeting, the panel's website still lied to the public with the ridiculous claim about ensuring transparency, but it did have a link to a letter dated the 8th of February from the Chairman to the Commissioner, the second paragraph of which read, "The panel's recommendation is that the proposed candidate is not appointed to the post." The Commissioner's response, as published on her website, said that the Commissioner had decided to formally appoint Mr. Steve Waite as Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner. As the last chairman of Sussex Police Authority, Waite should feel at home in that office. According to the Commissioner, I have inherited a small team previously employed by Sussex Police Authority. Whether the inheritance was compulsory or by choice, she does not say. The Commissioner did herself appoint as interim Chief Executive the person who had inherited the post of Chief Executive of Sussex Police Authority from his predecessor, who, with the end of the authority in sight, had inherited it from the first Chief Executive in 2011. The first Chief Executive had been clerk to Sussex Police Authority until 2007. The final page of this video is taken from the Commissioner's website. Prior to joining the Police Authority, Debbie worked for Sussex Police. Dinah has come to the Police Authority from Sussex Police, where she worked for many years in the diversity team. After graduating in 2008, Graham started work with Sussex Police, where he was employed as the Human Resources Performance Analyst.